All right, there.
We do our roll call.
That you showed it to.
Yeah, let's start this meeting at 5 p.m. on November 11th, Monday, November 11th, 2023.
So
Okay. Angela and Joyce are not here. Dana,
Present.
Dave,
here,
David,
here,
Terry,
here.
and then we also have Sheridan. And Sheridan, what's your name? Again, I'm sorry. Ruby.
Hey, Joyce. Hey, good. Are you coming to this SAB meeting? Oh, okay, cool. We'll see you virtually then. Okay, sounds good. We'll see you in a minute. Thanks, bye.
So she's gonna pop in.
Yeah, she can pop.
Okay.
Saw her and it sounds like Kim's coming too.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, mind if I take number one?
Go. First.
Do you mind scrolling down to the first page of the authority and procedures? So, for anyone who doesn't know me or hasn't seen me in a while, my name's Preston. I'm the town manager for Ridgway. We thought we'd have a conversation, just a reminder, reiteration, if you will, about the authority and procedures, the charge for this board. And we're going to get candid. I'm not just going to read everything on the screen here, although we'll highlight some of this stuff, but we do need to have a candid conversation about how this board's going to continue. I think this might be Deb's last meeting as your staff representative, or close to last. And I'll be taking back over for Deb because she'll be transitioning to a bigger and better role with the town. It's going to be great.
Woo.
What is it? What are you doing?
I'm adding on the deputy clerk to my deputy treasurer position. So
Oh, that's a lot.
Yes.
If you didn't have enough,
Like a Bob Marley song,
you're a hard worker.
not shooting the deputies.
what is it? What's the Bob Marley song?
I didn't shoot the sheriff.
Oh.
So yeah, the establishment, purpose and duties, you all are here to affect the following: advance and encourage environmentally sustainable practices and ideas within the town, advise the town council on a number of ideas for improvements, facility matters, sustainable practices, resource conservation, renewable energy, waste reduction. I mean, it runs the gamut. It's certainly not limited to what you're reading on here. Collaboration, making recommendations on greenhouse gas emission goals, reduction targets, stuff like that, which I think you all are working towards here soon, hopefully. Promoting awareness on sustainability practices, not only in town events, but at regular operations and services at the town level. Performing other tasks related to environmental sustainability as the town council may direct. You can scroll down.
Keep going.
It's fine. And then Joyce is trying to get it. And then this is pretty standard language that you find in authority and procedures documents for bylaws, if you will, for planning commissions, other advisory boards. And I think if you scroll down to the bottom, it's really not that long of a bylaw document, but number 7 there is covers appropriation authority, which is similar to the bylaws for all of our other advisory boards, and it's similar to advisory boards, 2 town councils, 2 city councils, 2 boards of directors, whatever they're called around the country as it relates to appropriation authority, and this board not having the authority to appropriate or spend town funds. But certainly, and it has happened here with this board, the charge is there to certainly make recommendations depending on what the items are on the work plan and what items come up throughout the course of the year. So let's transition to the work plan. This is, in my opinion, the most important time of year for you all, the Sustainability Advisory Board, to be meeting to collectively figure out what your work plan, what your charge is going to be for the next fiscal year, right? So for 2025. And by that, Terry, we talked about this the other day.
Could I inject just or interrupt for a moment? Could you go back to the main bullets for a moment?
Yeah.
Preston, could you give us an example of other boards that are boards of the town council, like Parks and Rec?
Yeah.
And how they function similar or differently from those directives?
Yeah, great question. So here in Ridgway, we have several boards. Sustainability Advisory Board, we have the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee. Dave is a member of that board. We have the Youth Advisory Council. We have the Ridgway Planning Commission, although that board is governed a little bit differently, given, you know, the land use and quasi judicial nature of what they do. But those are, and then we have Ridgway Fuse, which is the Colorado the Ridgway Creative Main Street Committee, you know, as part of our membership and designation as a Colorado Main Street community and a certified creative district in the state of Colorado.
And do any of them have different levels of authority or budget approval or budgets different than this committee?
That's another really good question. Youth Council, SAB, the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee do not have line items or appropriation authority, you know, with them as part of those bylaws. Ridgway Fuse, because it's been around, actually, I shouldn't say that it's been around longer, but it seems like it's been around longer. And the fact that we have a community initiatives facilitator, a part-time, soon to be full-time position administering that program, administering that board, advancing those strategic work plan items. There are monetary figures associated with some of those projects and initiatives. You know, one of them being, I'm only saying it because it's coming right up, the Ridgway Independent Film Festival, which is directly associated with the town and administered through Ridgway Fuse.
What was the name of that position? Community what? The
Community Initiatives Facilitator.
was it?
That's
Tara.
Tara,
Okay.
Tara Wick.
And that's actually a full-time staff position or? part-time?
She's part-time at 32 hours a week currently. We're exploring making her full-time 40 hours a week for 2025. But it's been a 32-hour a week position since inception, which would have been like 2013.
Which predated Fuse brand.
I don't know the full history. I think that was Deidre Silbert in that role. And I think she came about right around the time the creative district was becoming certified or, you know, formally designated.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, to go back, and not to be redundant, sorry, but, you know, this is the most important time of year for the SAB and other committees for that matter, but especially the SAB, because there's so much that can be done, so much that the town council has already wanted to see by way of our strategic plan, our master plan, that can be done in any given year. And so this is the time of year through the town's annual budget cycle where it's imperative for you all as a board to get together, not one or two times, I would argue, and this is just my opinion, you know, up to 3 times over the course of, you know, regularly scheduled meetings starting in like, you know, September, October, November, to lay out what that work plan is going to be for the next fiscal year, to bounce different ideas off of each other. Deb just scrolled down to what the work plan really is for this board. Not number 10 there highlighted. It's kind of hard to see. It's supposed to be yellow. It's a little orangey.
Better.
That's good.
You guys can see it. Okay. And again, it lays out the goals, the efforts that you all agreed to focus on and advance throughout the course of the year. So the first one being, and this is kind of jumping down into one of those other items. I think, I don't remember how it's characterized on the agenda, but evaluating progress on these and then figuring out what I'm talking about, what to do for 2025, right? I guess the point I'm trying to make is at a fundamental level, it's so imperative that you all attend these meetings, especially, you know, all the time, of course, but we all have lives and we're all busy and we have plenty of extracurricular activities. But I think we need to figure out how we can get all of you, most, if not all of you, around the same table or Zoom room every month to help advance all these projects. You know, and I'll be candid, Dave Jones cannot do everything by himself. He is a superhuman, but he can't do everything by himself. I'm looking at that first bullet right there, enhance education on regional sustainability climate action efforts. And Dave, you and Kenny maybe, but I think it was largely spearheaded by you, spent a significant amount of time getting the website going earlier this year.
Yeah, and we've got a subcommittee now with those two who are going to assist me as we update it.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is, you know, I'm
Yeah,
not trying
no.
to single you out, but
No,
you
no.
did a lot of
But
work.
no, I appreciate that, but you know, so what you want us to do, what we need to do is establish our goals. We're not gonna have a budget. That's the,
Well,
you know, so we're not trying to decide what to spend money on. We're trying to decide what our goals would be. And then as the year goes on, if there are things that come up, we can go back to the town and say,
yeah,
is that what I understand?
yeah,
Because I mean, we've talked about, like, we will do another EV event. We've got a date now, you know, so next summer, you know, we'll have an EV event. We have this annual conference now of all the mountain towns, you know. Do we want some budget to send a member or two? So do you want us to come up with budget ideas like those, or do you want us to, you know, focus on what are the things in the work plan?
love it. So let me finish my spiel, which
Sure.
that I practice like.
No, yeah, in front of the mirror.
Yeah, in front of the mirror. But you are going the route I really wanted to go. So yeah, as part of that goal setting, you know, you could have 5, you could have 10 bullets that you want to recommend to the town council. Ultimately, it's up to the town council to decide what should be, what should be in the strategic plan and what we shouldn't focus our time on. There may be some dollar amounts associated with these line items, which we need to pinpoint. And then if there is collective agreement by the town board, the town council, we can funnel that into the budget and make that there. That doesn't constitute appropriation authority.
Sure.
Or
No.
that doesn't violate that provision. That's just a recommendation like, hey, can we have $750 to help promote the EV ride and drive? Or, you know, do all this stuff.
Right.
And that's how that would work. But this is the time to do it.
So I heard 3 terms in there that I want to differentiate. One was goals, other was a work plan, and the third was activities, like EV ride event. It's not a goal, it's not a work plan, although a work plan could lead to an activity. And I think that's something that is a little nebulous here. And I think that's where this is, why you're here is what's led to that, or the nebulousness of that has led to your coming here to help clarify.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I would say that's all the same bucket. Goals are within the work plan. This is the work plan, the strategic plan, we call it, but it's the work plan. It lays out the work for staff. It doesn't talk about the day-to-day stuff. It really talks about special type projects and everything, initiatives, what have you. So I would say, to answer your question, Terry, we need to lay out goals within the work plan. What was the third term you used?
Activities.
Activities. And those activities like EV ride and drive event or anything else, I think those should be memorialized here too. So that at the end of the year or throughout, as we monitor and measure progress, we can see, oh yeah, we're actually, you know, we're making headway on this. You know, oh, we haven't really touched on this. What's going on here, kind of thing. I think it should all be here. I think, and you all can approach it however you want. I mean, if it were me, because it's because I'm a little old school, I would have actually probably a whiteboard. I'd have a whiteboard and I'd be writing down all this stuff. And then figure out a way to consolidate that into some bullets so we can plug it in.
Sure.
And I want to touch on the other thing that you had mentioned. You know, that this group is so wildly passionate and gung ho about getting stuff done. And that's fantastic. And that's the way it should be. That's why this board was put together in the first place. But we have to have a structure and a process, which I think is kind of partly why I'm here, because that hasn't been fully understood or known. If there are ideas or things that come up throughout the course of the year that aren't on this list, that doesn't preclude you from talking about it or thinking through how to make it happen. But I think there needs to be some accountability and some initiative to remember, hey, we have our charge, we agreed on this. We need to focus on this stuff. How can we advance this, whatever the idea is that came up, whatever, I'm not going to make up an example, but say something came up and you all want to figure out how to advance it. Well, the process for that, if it's not on here, and I've tried to convey this before, but probably not very well, is you all discuss it. You all can make a motion and a vote, or you don't have to. I don't think it matters. A motion and vote is always probably the cleanest way to do it. To say, you know, Terry Schuyler or Dave Jones is going to take this idea to the town council at the November 13th, 2025 town council meeting to lay out some sort of narrative, some sort of presentation on what was discussed, what the board wants to see happen, and what, you know, ultimately what the recommendation is. Then the town council can take that information and decide what to do with it. They, you know, the hope would be, one sec, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
we
hope
got
would be
Joyce
that
County.
town council says, oh, sure, that's a wonderful idea. Let's figure out how to make it happen. They would direct staff and say, hey, staff, let's work with the SAB or whatever they'd say to advance this. Let's get it done. The town may not be in a position to advance it at that point, right? And so, you know, it's never cool to be told no or not to see something advanced, but that's always a possibility, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we are a small community with you know, a limit on staffing and resources. And so, you know, we all should go into it realistically. But that's what I would recommend for the stuff that's not being advanced every meeting on the work plan. Dana.
Well, I think we voted on at least 3 items that I can think of, and they never went anywhere. They weren't presented to the town council. I believe you were supposed to present them to the town council.
I was never told to present anything to the town council.
I was told that by Deb with trying to get that idling ordinance through. And so I presented it and it never went anywhere. I love what you're saying, but it's a little bit discordant because I don't see the town helping us at all. I'm sorry. I don't understand when we voted on going net zero for 2030, that never got presented to the town council. And then I had to go in front of them for the idling and that never even went anywhere. So what you're saying you know, you're putting it in bureaucratic terms because you're in the government, but I don't see you guys doing anything to help us.
Yeah, rather than going backwards and hashing through that, I think what I hear we have consternation as a group. You have consternation looking at the perception of dysfunction of our group.
I'm not going backwards.
Well, no,
I
no,
resent that.
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, rather than looking at the past, I think what we're here to do is try to figure out a way to move
Well, I
forward.
think we should look at the past, just figure out what went wrong.
Right. And
I think it's important to look at the past and I'd like to know what did go wrong. Nobody's given me an answer.
and I'm about to address that.
How do you
concern.
know the answer? Oh,
I
you know
don't
the
know.
town council, that's
Yeah,
right.
right.
You might know. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Well, that's right. But I think the word that needs to be underscored, and if you go back to that mission a few pages up, and you've mentioned the word 2 or 3 times in what you just said, is the term recommending. So the mechanism for us, this committee, to advance something that we agree on is either as an advisory board is to advise or recommend. And I think in my perception, both sitting on both sides of the fence, there isn't a really clear mechanism for recommending it. And
Yeah, we've talked about it in our meetings, it's just,
I know.
we're kind of confused
thought
about
we
what
all
the process
figured it
is
out.
to get things in front of the council.
Yeah,
So,
and that's what I've tried to lay out. That is the process, because this board doesn't have any staff and doesn't have the ability to direct staff to do something. So the.
Joyce
go ahead.
also has her hand raised.
Yeah, she's been trying.
I'll let Joyce go next. Go ahead, Joyce.
I just had wanted to go back to some of the items that Kristen had reiterated on budget and a work plan. And I know that, gosh, was that maybe 2 meetings ago, but we had Deb kind of put together a rough budget request. Preston, I'm sure you saw that, but it was for probably like the EV ride and drive event, some marketing items, and possibly funding for some of the staff to go to the small mountain town meeting, like the annual conference. And then as for work plans and goals, at one point we had all kind of sat down and put together a list of like, top 3 or 4 items from the regional climate action plan of what we thought were important and we wanted to focus on. And I think somewhere that got lost within, I don't know, one of the many meetings. But I will say, and I think that, as part of the work plan, I think it's really great that we're going for some of these big things like greenhouse emission reductions and how we're going to get there. But just coming from another municipality and how other sustainability boards work, I think it's important that we also have some of these smaller goals to focus on. So, for example, there are a lot of entities that might say, okay, like we really want to focus on making landfill reductions, and so we would like to see compost within our community. And so the goal for that year, which is achievable within a goal, is figuring out how do we get a composting program within the community, and what does that look like? Because right now we're really focused on these ordinance and regulations and these big things, but there's a lot in the cap that is recommended within our community that as a board is we're kind of designed to help focus some of those not necessarily smaller items, but items that could get us there within the next year or two. And so I do think that we should kind of go back and talk about some some achievable, like shorter term goals and lay those out as well.
I mean, yeah,
That's all.
So,
great comment, Joyce.
so question, I know during the monthly town meeting, there is a opportunity for the representatives to share with the other members of the town council. Is that something that we could have somebody also sit in on to, so, if I'm the chair of the committee and, could Terry and I, as opposed to just Terry always having to do the briefing, is that something that's possible?
Well, and is that the time when we would make, if we have a recommendation bring forward? Is that the time when we would bring a recommendation forward, or is it during the public comment period?
So great question. I would not recommend doing it at the end of the meeting at 9:30 at night.
Right.
Which is when we traditionally have that update. Dave, what you're saying is what I would recommend. We have the public comment period at the beginning of every meeting where anybody can come in to talk about anything not on the agenda. And I think that's where we've tried to direct people in the past. And I think that's the perfect opportunity for whoever the designated representative is to plug no idling ordinance, or Dana did that.
Well, what happened? Where's the idling ordinance?
The town council didn't give any direction to staff to advance that, Dana. And that's what I was getting at, is you may be told yes, and you may be told no.
I wasn't told anything.
Well, I mean, it was that the result of that conversation was, again, staff wasn't told to advance anything. We scroll down to
So what do? Do we present it again?
You're certainly welcome to do that. One thing I want to say real
Can't even
quick
be, they
is
didn't.
we have pages and pages of these goals each and every year. Terry knows this well.
Yeah.
It's our annual strategic plan. Again, this isn't the standard services that we provide each year, but these are all projects that we have to work on in advance, report on, and try to achieve by the end of the year. Stuff that's not on here and the stuff that these ideas, where the town council says, yeah, let's make that happen, that impedes our ability to make this stuff happen.
Well, then why are we here as a committee if we're impeding your ability?
And that goes back to what I said at the forefront. This is the most important time of year for this board to sit around and figure out what you want to do for the next year. Again, that doesn't preclude you from having ideas and trying to get them, on the radar and advanced in the middle of the year. I mean, that's awesome. But that, hopefully that clears up what the process would be for that. But I'm just trying to drive home how I've seen in other communities, and the way it works best is to have your ducks in a row, be at every meeting, especially during the budget cycle, and collectively agree upon what your charge is going to be, what you're going to come in here at 5 o'clock on a Monday in November or in February and try to work on, try to knock out. And the last thing I'll say is, I don't want to, like single you out again, Dave, but I mean, you were the like one of the greatest volunteers in this community. And that's what we need on this board is and I see it with this group, the initiative, and the resilience to help advance this stuff, because we're limited at the staff capacity or at the staff level. And that's not an excuse. It doesn't feel cool to say, but I mean, we need you all to help, in any way you can to advance this stuff, if that makes sense.
I'd like to help allay some of your frustration and bridge the gap as to why nothing happened with your suggestion. It's kind of like that term love language. There's a language that's associated with action in front of the council. For example, I can't remember what it was. There was something else that was presented recently that did result in the council directing staff to take some form of action. Either it's explore it further and come back with a recommendation. In the case of an ordinance, could you please draft an ordinance, and it goes to a 2 or 3 month process. What I saw happen was that the idea on the no idle issue was presented, and the council was like, yeah, it's a good idea. But what we, not just you, failed to do was to use the love language of, we'd like for you to recommend to staff to take this action. And that one sentence didn't happen, and therefore everybody was like, okay, that's cool, and nothing happened. So it wasn't anything.
Oh, you have to use that one.
Well, this is my observation, is that when we collectively, this board goes before the council, and whether it's in public comments or whether it's in policy matters, depends upon the action we're looking at, we have to have the right language in order to stimulate action.
So I have a question about that. So if we had, discussed this among ourselves and come up with the idea that we believe it's worth a town ordinance to, manage the idling issue.
We did, we voted.
Would we present that and say, we think this is worthy of a town ordinance? Would we be better off to say, here's a draft ordinance that we came up with? Or is that something that staff would do? Just trying to understand again more about the process. What will help the town move forward on something that we recommend?
Yeah, great question. I've seen it both ways. I mean, it's as simple as, hey, this is town council. The Sustainability Advisory Board is making a recommendation via formal motion and vote to implement more strict. Well, we don't have an idling ordinance, so some formal idling regulations within our municipal code. What do you all think about that? Is that something that you all would be willing to, direct staff to explore? Now, that's one way. The other way that you kind of just touched on was, have a draft ordinance ready to go. That's y'all's prerogative to help draft something that'd be extremely helpful for staff. Ultimately, it would have to be staff have to take what you put together and look through it and
With the legal.
look at some comparable communities and stuff and touch it up, stuff like that. If we got the direction to advance that. So either way works. In that example that Terry brought up, I was racking my brain too. It was about banning puppy mills.
That's a good question.
Banning puppy mills. And that gal came down from Durango and had a draft ordinance ready to go and a lot of other literature. And so, and you should pass it out and everything. Dana, you did the same thing.
I mean, everything you're saying is counter to what actually happened. That's what I don't understand. You're telling us what to do when I actually did what you're telling me that we should do. So to me, this is an absolutely, what's the word I want?
I guess my question is, it's
Did I
great
finish what I
to
was saying?
present something during that first 5 minutes. The only thing there is no dialogue. You were talking, it's not, it's not an open dialogue. So it's then the question of, again, following up, later in the meeting during that time when you update on your committee. And obviously that needs to be short. Meetings already got long, but it is an opportunity for dialogue so that you can, if you presented something early in the meeting, and you can say, just like to get your thoughts on that, is there something that you agree with and we want to move forward? Just, give an opportunity for follow-up, and we don't have that when you do that
Right.
during the first 5 minutes.
Exactly, that's a good point.
Now, that's a very astute observation that there's really not supposed to be back and forth.
Correct. Correct.
We live in Ridgway and they're back and forth all the time.
I understand.
So, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, and I've told this to folks before, to press and say, hey, like, is this kind of a yes or no?
Right.
What do you all think? And, John Clark in his role is great at navigating meetings and, at that point, I'm 100% sure he'd say, well, what does everyone think? We want to advance this. Do we want to direct staff? And we get an answer. That way, there would be no need for follow-up by, Terry and his role as liaison at the end of the meeting kind of deal. I think, what I'm saying is if you all motion to vote to advance something and someone comes to the meeting, presents it, says we'd appreciate you all considering directing staff to advance this in some capacity, you're going to get some sort of answer.
There's three.
Well, we didn't.
There's three major areas.
I mean, everything you're saying,
Well,
but we didn't get an answer. I mean, you're saying, oh, well, Dana, but it's the first time we ever tried to get something pushed through and it went flat.
Well, there's no need to be rude, Dana.
I'm not being rude, I'm angry.
Just kind of mocked me a little bit. I think that's rude. So
Well,
let's make this a decorum.
How did I mock you?
Well, that's neither here nor there.
Come on.
Let's recognize that it fell flat and let's figure out a way to avoid that in the future. So that's my suggestion here, is not to get too overly upset about what didn't happen. Let's figure out a way to make it
I'm not
happen.
upset about what didn't happen. What I'm upset about is you're telling me to do exactly the same thing I did now. And I'm expecting the same result. How do I expect another? That's all I'm saying. You're telling me to do exactly the same thing I did already, which was present to the town council. And you're saying that's what we need to do. And nothing, it didn't go anywhere. So I don't feel that we're at fault.
So I guess I'm hearing we present during the first 5 minutes.
Which
And
is,
if we feel like we got resolution, we threw it up, John called out, then great, that's done. If we don't feel like there's resolution and we still have some questions, then we still have the opportunity to sit down with Terry and hash it out with,
Absolutely. So
So
that goes back to why we're here now, to avoid, I'm not saying avoid, but to minimize how often that might come up.
exactly.
This is the opportunity, Dana, for you to say, hey, as part of the work plan for 2025, not to pick on you, but just like say, hey, I think we should recommend to the town council that a no idling ordinance be drafted and considered for an action in the municipal code. And see what everyone thinks about that.
we already
then-
did it and we voted on it.
Well, I'm talking about the other path of memorializing in our work plan. That is in my opinion, the much better and more formal way to document and get it on our charge, you know, Winnie and me and Deb, because we're the only staff people in the room, on our charge throughout the course of 2025 to get it done.
Let me ask you a question. In a typical council meeting, there are 4 categories of issues that come before the council. 1 is public comments. That's what we were just talking about. 2 is public requests and presentations. 3 is public hearings, should there be one. That's not always the case. And 4 is policy matters. I'm wondering if the recommendations of this or any of the other committees should be done in public comments, because that almost seems like it's from the Joe public rather than an actual subcommittee of the council, and rather be a portion of
And
one of
also
the
not
other.
pre-planned or not, you know, the public comment is just like,
Kind of
this is extra coming in.
It's
from the
not
public.
on the agenda, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's and this is something for you to consider. I don't know if you have an answer to it right
That's a
now.
good idea.
I wonder if the mechanism, the conduit, the method by which this and the other committees bring recommendations or suggestions or ordinances should fall under public requests and presentations, or maybe policy matters, because what we're really talking about here is
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah.
So that also a little bit of back and forth can happen during.
Right, so there's an
that
exchange.
Typically doesn't
Yeah.
happen during
I mean,
public. comment.
That's certainly another way to do it. You run the risk of, you know, depending on how the agendas get ordered, and I tell this to people all the time when they ask for devoted agenda items, you run the risk of having to wait till an 8:30 time slot. You know what I mean?
But
Because,
then it's on the agenda rather.
but then it's on the agenda. But in my opinion, I've been in local government for 13 years now. Just because it's on the agenda doesn't make it more impactful. That's just my sole opinion.
But it does give a chance for two-way exchange as opposed to just a comment.
Yeah, that's fair too. That's fair.
What's that
But
mean?
again, you know, we're fixated on that.
It's usually a one-way.
What's a two-way exchange?
Meaning that you can then discuss these issues with the council. So if, for example, you wanted to recommend that the council consider asking staff to draft an ordinance or to further investigate whatever we come up. Let's say the one that I'm going to talk about later today is I think we should get strong about a recommendation for a net zero target. So how do we then communicate that to such that that gets institutionalized in the work plan? And when you mentioned work plan, you're talking about the larger work plan, not just the work plan of this committee.
Yeah.
So if you go back, if you scroll up or down, if you could, Deb, just scroll up a little bit. These are all issues in our strategic plan that are work plans that you can see on the right have entities that are assigned to deal with it. Some of them are Preston, some of them are building, and some of them are, there's various, clerk, blah, 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 but they become something that is worked on by the town's staff and or whoever is assigned to it during the course of the year. And so that's the work plan that you're referring to. Internally with this committee, we come up with goals, but I also think we should have our own mini internal work plan. These are the things that we want to bring forward to the council to put on the work plan.
And this is that right there.
Yeah.
And that's what you all should be talking about the majority of this week. Is to figure out what that's going to be for 2025. I know y'all are fixated on what the process is for advancing the stuff that's not on here, and I love it. I'm, glad we're getting some clarity, and hopefully that makes sense. So, public comment or devoted agenda item, depending on what the outcome of the conversation is. But the hope would be that there's not a lot of that, right? That's why it's so imperative this time of year to sit around this table and have 9 or 10 different bullets to advance every meeting so that you have 2 hours to advance all that stuff, one meeting a month.
So for example, implementing a ordinance for a no idling policy would become a bullet in this section. And
And then if
then,
it's on here,
Right.
our charge is to make it happen in 2025.
the net zero.
So
thing
that's
is
why
all-
I'm recommending, Dana, that as part of, I think we should wrap this up soon, so you guys don't have to listen to me talk anymore, then you can figure out what the charge is gonna be next year. And you have next month too. Provided that it's an early enough meeting, because that's when the strategic plan gets adopted in December, when the town council adopts the budget. So,
But I'm just a bit confused. Are you saying that if we give you 5 bullet
or whatever it is.
desires and they're listed literally with words that you are required to
That's a great question.
I heard you say.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was alluding to probably.
What does that
Required,
mean that you're required to?
well, it's part of our, you know, I don't know how to use different words than I've already been using, so sorry, but it's part of our work plan. It's part of our charge. We're certain, it's a priority.
You're required to look at it?
Well, we're required to make efforts in the time that we have and the resources that we have to advance certain things, right? And so, if it's on there, odds are, there are some items on there that we just can't get to. There's not enough time in the day and the year kind of thing. But yeah, odds are it will get advanced in some capacity.
Well, and presumably if we put about bullet items that really doesn't make sense at all to the town. It makes sense to us, but not to anybody else. You're not gonna,
Council's not gonna approve.
yeah.
Take that off.
But the way I interpret it is, we need to come up with things we want to do. Get them in the work plan, and as we work through them and come up with specific recommendations on those bullet items that fit within this work plan, we bring them to the council and you know, encourage you to you know, work on them.
Yeah, exactly. So as
So
a
we have
result,
to present this to get it on the work plan?
it's a good question. So, because that's where I think Dave was going. I think as a result of the conversation today and perhaps next month, Deb will give us the list of what you collectively agree upon, the 5 or 6 bullets or whatever it is. We plug it into the strategic plan. And I draft next year's strategic plan, which I've already started drafting, with those bullets and 175 others, right? Terry's seen it. It's like, it's organized by community value. It's pretty lengthy.
It's a long read.
And then it gets massaged a little bit by not often, but you know, council will say, hey, why are we doing that? I don't know if we should focus on that. Let's, you know, they provide prioritization kind of deal. And then it gets solidified and then adopted. So to answer your question, no, you don't have to. If you'd like to, you all could request an agenda item to formally present what you all would like to work towards next year. That's not fully necessary. Does that answer your question?
So
Yeah, but I think, I mean, we could I can think of all sorts of things I'd love to put up here.
Oh, I know you can. That's the other thing. And you have to be realistic.
Right.
It's achievable goals.
Achievable and yeah, that, you know, because you guys decide which of those to check and which of those to
Well,
X.
we would never just X anything.
Well, no.
But you know, some to the town council, right? It's the town council, you'll
That's it.
advisory to them. And then we'll do our best to advance them. But that's what I was getting at before is, you know, we're limited in what we can do. It's imperative for you all to help it run the EV ride and drive event and you know, put up signs for that. And I'm making stuff up now, but you know, what those tangible goals are, helping to advance those.
So
But-
what, we decide, we would add it to here, the town council would review it, decide what's feasible, and then we move forward the next year with the bullets that we have.
Exactly.
Sounds to me that most of the bullets that we put in here, you're gonna put into the plan unless you, in your drafting of the strategic plan, you look at something and go, yeah, that's
Well, yeah.
way out there.
Yeah, I would never just exit and not put it in there. I mean, if we needed to come back and say, what is this? You know, you guys want to go to the moon in 2025?
You'll probably want to X some of this.
Well, I mean, we would need to agree on it.
It's unlikely that we'll come up with something like that.
So I know, I was just making.
You know, the bullets will probably be going into the strategic plan basically as it is, and then we begin acting on those. And again, as I said earlier, as we work on those, they'll take the form of a formal recommendation that we bring to the town council, either during the public comment or as an agenda item or whatever we decide is the best process for that.
Yeah, although if they're on this, we don't need to bring them to the town
It's already on there.
council. They're just gonna be on.
Yeah, they'll just be on there and we'll figure out the process and timeline to advance them through you all first. You know, planning commission if necessary.
So that means we won't have the need to go in front of the town council with recommendations.
Not unless we're.
No,
trying to
not,
advance.
that process is really only for the stuff that comes up. Like if you were to come in and say, hey, I think that we should
We didn't have this on the
get
plan.
rid of roofs and never have, you know, not have roofs in Ridgway. okay, we'll go to the town council and plug that idea. That's the process we were talking about before.
Well, how do we know what's going on with these bullet points with the town?
That's the purpose of these meetings you know,
Somebody comes
set
in and
agenda.
tells us how things are going?
Yeah,
from the
that's
town?
supposed to- Yeah, well, I mean, you all should be helping to advance this stuff, and so you all can give updates on how you all are achieving these goals and what's going on.
But I just heard that we didn't have to do anything, it is going to town council if we put it at bullet points. You're extremely confused, I'm sorry.
So let me use an example again, going back to the idle thing. So we put that on as a bullet.
Yep.
And then we in this committee decide that it will help promote that if we do a draft ordinance. And then we present the draft ordinance, but we don't have to do that in town council. We just present you with the ordinance. or-
So the way I would see that happening, because I don't think we've done anything like that in the last few years, say the idling ordinance is on there. At some point, making this up, February or March of next year, when we can get around to it, we'll have an item on the agenda that says review of draft ordinance enacting a prohibition on idling, whatever it's called. And then you all can spend, you know, a designated amount of time reviewing that, picking it apart, saying this doesn't make sense, you know, finding typos, getting it ready to go to the town council level, and then making a recommendation for hopefully approval. And then that's advanced to the town council, and they have 2 readings of an ordinance and a public hearing at the second reading. You all can attend that and comment on it as you see fit, kind of deal. But I hope I'm answering your question. I mean, that's how I have it pictured in my mind, because that's how I've seen it before, kind of working start to finish for something like an idling.
So if I can just say something real quick here, I'm sorry. So having the items on the work plan is really already, council has already, if it gets approved, it's already done. I mean, they're expecting it to happen. This is what we're, as staff, driving to accomplish for the year. So the board's task is to make these things happen. It's what the
To
town
follow
council,
that.
what the town council's.
What this doesn't show, and Preston periodically presents to the council, is a status of each of these with red text. If these are green or gray, whatever, he sends us a version of this that says, here's where we are on this. We've made this amount of progress. This looks like it's impossible to do this year. And each one of these 15 or 20 things, and this is just for this one category of health or whatever it is at the top there, nature and health. I can't remember the name of the category. If you scroll up, it says it.
Sure.
President provides council a status update on where things stand with each of these. This doesn't show it. This is just the ball, the bare goals, not the current status of where things are. And I think, do you update, you do that a couple times a year or something? Or is it just?
Yeah, I try to do it a couple times a year.
So that's where we would get a copy of that. We can access the copy of that because he presents it to the council and we can access that and we can see where things are leading or lagging. And then as a group, we can say, all right, well, we need to help push this along and here's what we can do to help push this along. So
Well, that's where, and I think last thing I'll say, we could do that at every meeting, do a status update, like
That
a
makes
progress
sense.
report on every single item.
That
Um,
makes a lot
But
of
it wouldn't
sense.
always be me or Deb, or whoever it is, to give the update. It could be Dave, or it could be Dana, or it could be Dave. or
Well, how do we know what the update is? Who do we get that from?
Well, it just depends on what the item is and who's working on what. You know what I mean?
In the staff, with the staff.
No, because staff, that's, to go back, I mean, we're limited on what we can do. The idling ordinance is, I think, the most structured example of, getting, staff has to be involved in vetting and drafting and stuff. EV ride and drive,
the codifying and net zero goal.
well, codifying, yeah, I mean,
Voted on.
codifying stuff that really has to involve staff. There's other stuff that doesn't necessarily need to involve staff.
Okay.
It's volunteer efforts,
Okay.
right? That's what I was trying to drive home at the beginning is it's imperative that the volunteer, whatever the word is, volunteerism is apparent here. So, and that's why I keep calling out Dave because he's the man.
But back to, a point I made earlier about the various other committees. How do their goals, objectives, initiatives, do they manifest themselves in the same way, just on a different category? Do they show up on the structured work plan like this?
You guys have a lot of great questions tonight. For Ridgway Fuse does, well, they have their own strategic plan. But there's a general item on here that talks about advancing the Ridgway Fuse strategic plan, but they have their own strategic plan. Just because of how it's structured.
Thing on here.
Yeah, it's not, the whole thing's not. There's a general item on here, and it's not in this, it'd be on one of the other pages, it's not in here. There's a general statement about helping to advance the Youth Advisory Council and their initiatives, Parks, Trails, and Open Space and their initiatives, but they don't have, they're not disorganized. You know what I mean?
Well, they have money too.
Well, no,
No.
Oh,
well, the youth council is a bunch of students, and it's
I thought you were talking
Kinda like
about
teaching a class.
the art one. They have money.
Yeah, they're kind of in a separate.
Views has money.
There's,
Fuse has a little money.
I'm sorry, that's what I
was-
thought.
And that's what I was saying before, because it's a little longer standing. The initiatives are, not apples to apples, like they have the film festival and stuff like that. So,
Not controversial.
Well, and they also have a paid staff member that,
Yeah.
32 hours that
Right.
is,
So our next meeting tonight and next meeting, we need to add some things to our work plan here.
and I think that the items are already on here. If you looked at the minutes from the last meeting, we took this and we did some modifications to it. Instead of enhance, we did like establish town goal to reach net zero.
Right.
So.
Is that what
we-
Joyce was talking about?
What's that?
Is that what Joyce was talking about?
No.
earlier?
No, she was referring to the meeting before where we did some prioritize things that we wanted to do.
Things that might cost.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so,
But I mean, these are a good start. And yeah.
Right, I think we put
We want
some
all
of them
these.
that we
put
did.
some, but we didn't add
And actually, we,
anything additional.
right, we kind of charged ourselves the last meeting to all of us go through this and add
Yeah,
what we thought.
So the no idling ordinance, we can add that on.
The net zero we can add, or maybe that's already.
The thing is, we
But that-
voted
that's
already
zeroes out.
voted on both of those. this is what I.
moving forward, Dana, if we put it on the strategic plan, council will already, will be approving the strategic plan. So I think we just need to move forward.
Yeah, because
so we're honing the mechanisms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's
and
admittedly fallen flat, and let's also
Yeah,
admit it
let's
fell flat.
work
So
to
we're working
make it
towards-
work.
Oh, I see what we're doing. We're redoing our whole process with this.
No, I think prior to
Committee.
this, we didn't have
Clarity.
sort of clarity.
Clarifying.
and
Yeah,
so we
because I
didn't
was never
realize-
told that
Right.
bullet points, we needed to put those on so that they might get through. And what are we in our third year now of the
Well, and
sustainability?
that's why, I think that leads to the next item. I think you all, I would recommend you all find a recurring day. It doesn't need to be recurring, but you figure out a time each month that works best for all of you to sit around the table. I know Angela, travels a lot, so,
We spend a lot of time in our meetings hashing over things that happened the meeting before, because people weren't there. So
This is
we
our-
really need to have,
this is our third year and we were
Yeah.
created and everybody has a 3-year membership
Right.
that was initially created. So this is the big turnover year.
could be,
We've got to figure out how to
so,
change our membership so that, every year we get a couple new members and bring in some new blood. Yeah.
These
and
are
we
grow-
need, we
these are
need
the
people
growing
here, we need
pains. We're
bodies and
top-
yeah, we
seats.
have any
We
body.
need bodies and
We're
seats.
starting to walk.
Yeah,
Because
to-
it's really frustrating to not have people here. Because at the time that we spent on hashing what we've already gone through is, it's time that we don't need to be spending.
But what you're saying, Preston, is in addition to our formal meetings, we need to set up some sort of work sessions among ourselves. Is that what you're saying?
You can, I just,
Because then don't we run afoul
There's
of
a-
sunset.
we would need to understand what you all are thinking, but that's,
I think ultimately, right now, we need to find a day that everybody can, the best days for people to attend. a meeting. If we have to change it every month to get everybody to attend, then that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is what we did for
because
this month.
that's what we did for this month, because look what happened last month.
Right.
We had 3 people.
I think that's well
Can I,
said. We
can I
need to do
step
that.
outside of this immediate and just give a little, a very brief update on the Mountain 2030 conference? It's something that I took away from that, that's going to lead to a suggestion that will come back to this discussion. So the conference had 550 people. There was probably 70 different communities there, or maybe 70 elected officials and a couple dozen mountain communities. It was very well done. I presented on behalf of the town in one session. There was another presentation by Eco Action Partners and a collaboration we did in Silverton. We actually won an award for Collaboration of the Year award. But the takeaway that I want to bring forward is that some of the larger communities like Jackson Hole and Steamboat and Vail and Aspen, these are big mountain communities, they actually have a paid full-time staff member called the Sustainability Coordinator. They don't have a sustainability board like we have because we're much smaller. We don't have the budget for that. You know, Fuse has a much larger charge. It came off of the Main Street activities where there was some funding associated with it. But one of the issues that I discussed with Preston, and I'm just going to kind of go through some ideas that we should consider, is the nature of the Sustainability Advisory Board is to come up with ideas and advise the town. If this was a paid staff person, it would be somebody working 40 hours a week to advance the exact same objective. That's not the reality here. How do we bridge that gap? And I have a couple suggestions, and one of them is based on, in fact, Kim is here. Looking at a series of potential options. One is you fold the Sustainability Advisory Board and the town tries to find a budget to hire somebody to do this work. And it could be a shared resource that's shared between Uray County, City of Uray, and Ridgway. That's one out of the box possibility. Another is that the town provides funding to Eco Action Partners to help resource somebody to help this committee take our ideas and put it into actions, because they've got a lot of experience with this. They're the ones that generated the climate action plan. They do this all the time. Third is that the Eco Action Partners just received a 3-year grant for a staff person whose sole mission it is to assist all of the communities that are part of the climate action plan. And so Kim, at a later date, will be able to present that. They're actually looking to fill that position. But one of the thoughts that I've talked to Kim about and mentioned Preston about is maybe we can tap this new full paid position to come before our, sit with our committee, help us herd our cats and get our ducks in a row and come up with tangible items that then flows into this mechanism, so that, one of the realities with this committee is we all are well-intentioned and passionate. We come, we talk about things, and then we leave and we don't touch it for a month. We come back and they go, no, what do we talk about again? And so there's no real, besides Dave, of course, Dave has been a stellar volunteer, as Preston mentioned, but it can't always just be on one person. And now we have a subcommittee. This is a step in the right direction, but there are other resources potentially available to us that could assist us in becoming more effective. And at some point, if it's okay by this group, we'll invite Kim to present to us. I think she's online, or she's not visible.
She is.
To actually talk about that position. And she's looking at ideas of how she could help the town of Ridgway go through manifesting, the goals of this committee based on the fact that this is their job. This is what they do every day, all day. They live and breathe it. They were the ones that held the trophy up for getting the award for having properly collaborated with San Juan County and the town of Silverton. So they have experience in how to collaborate with these municipalities. So that's all I'm going to say.
The first goal for 2025.
Yeah. So it's not, the clouds aren't just totally dark here. I think, as I said, I think we've experienced growing pains. We were a baby, now we're a toddler, and we're starting to get legs, and we're starting to hone in on the mechanisms. So I think that the Sustainability Advisory Board is getting more focused.
Sure.
And thanks to Preston for, bringing us back to center. And now we have a goal to try to populate this particular line item in his work plan, which he's gonna go, oh my God, look at all the shit they want me to do. So that's the downside.
But that's part of the exercise. I have to run, I have to go to another meeting. Good.
Thanks, Preston.
Thanks, Preston, for all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like the idea of having the bullets on every meeting so we could talk about what progress we've made.
We are,
Joyce has her
Yeah.
hand raised.
and then we can add, so how are
Joyce
we
has her
Can
going?
we we're just gonna ask, Joyce, go ahead and chime in real quick.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Joyce?
Oh, it's gone. It was raised, but
Oh.
now it's not.
She's muted. Maybe she's.
Oh,
Now we can.
yeah. Kim's got her hand up too. Who, Joyce, you on?
Can't hear
Can't
you.
hear you. Yeah,
Can't hear you, Joyce.
we're gonna let Kim speak and then see if we can come back to you. Is that okay? All right, Kim?
Hi there. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, I can, thanks.
Okay, great. Joyce just sounds really quiet. I could kind of hear her voice there.
Yeah, she's having some audio problem apparently.
Um, Thanks for letting me just join in and listen in. I just wanted to add on to what Terry was just saying. It's really good timing actually for you guys to be considering all of these different details related to your board. Tomorrow at the Snuffles Energy Board meeting, we are going to be going over the climate action plan and looking at the actions that were identified for completion within 1 to 3 years to see where we're at and create a work plan for prioritizing specific items that the Snuffles Energy Board and the region can work on together. So they're items that require government involvement and engagement in order to make them happen. We've got things kind of planned out into policies, program level, community engagement, as well as creative funding mechanisms we'll be talking about tomorrow as well. So I know Dave typically participates in those meetings, and Terry as well. If anybody else wants to listen in, you're welcome to. But I think the prioritization on a regional level can potentially really help this group to prioritize at your level as well. And I think that's part of the service that Eco Action Partners kind of already provides across the region, that if it were decided that our new climate action development director, I think is their title, could specifically help this board with, that would be, part of the process would be taking those regional items and then narrowing them in for specifics and helping them move through the Ridgway town government, knowing that the town staff doesn't have the capacity that some of the other governments do that have hired somebody part-time at all the different jurisdictions. The sustainability personnel at San Miguel County, Telluride, and Mountain Village are all part-time. None of them are full-time, but they do have staff members, whereas all the rest of our jurisdictions are like Ridgway and do not have a staff member with that in their title, even though it does pertain to certain positions, such as building energy code update, obviously falls under the building and planning department, etc. So hopefully that's helpful additional context for your conversation.
Kim, would it be okay for any of these Eco Action Partners meetings that I participate in? Can I forward the invite to everybody on the committee and say, here's a meeting coming up? Are there any that are members only, if you will, or can I just forward those invites? Invite people to listen in?
Yeah, I think certainly anybody on the Sustainability Advisory Board is welcome to come. We don't open those meetings up to widespread general public, just for the standpoint of trying to keep things moving forward. And we use other opportunities for public engagement, but.
Can I bridge that for a moment? Could you scroll up on this? One of the strategic actions, work plan items here is number 7. Participate on the Snuffles Energy Board and work with Board of Eco Action Partners. That's a town strategic objective. It's a town work plan item. I'm actually the liaison for the town council, but I think it's something worth discussing here in our SAB to formalize a liaison person, a dedicated person from the SAB to attend these meetings. Dave has been doing it voluntarily, but maybe we should create a position that's one of us that attends this meeting regularly, to your point, so that it's not just public jumping in. We're actually have an SAB representative, a known representative that attends the SEB meeting. So it's an SEB liaison. And Dave has been, like I said, Dave's been doing it, but he does it because he's he can't help himself. It's not because we've assigned him to do that.
Well, there's several meetings that are helpful, and it would be helpful to have somebody, and we could have different people, we talked about that, but different people from this group. Because, for instance, you know, Sheridan and David are both on the group now to listen in to your zoning change, you know, update
Okay.
meetings, which is a
So
really.
am I, by the way.
So just so
So
you
am I,
know,
by the way.
Oh, good,
we
good.
Yeah.
have Sheridan, Ribbing, who is, has been participating with this group. She's, got an application in to become a board member. And we're hopeful that this next meeting on Wednesday.
Right.
She'll be
Board member,
appointed to that,
so I missed that.
I sent a letter of interest in to join this SAB.
to join the SAB.
Formally.
She's,
Oh,
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah,
She's-
so we, and I don't know that you've been introduced
Not
to
working,
me
not
as David either. David's a new board member.
yeah,
To fill
and
Kenny's spot.
similarly, you know, like with the EV, there's a nice EV committee, task force that meets, and are you on that, Sheridan? Yeah, so, you know, listening in does help us with ideas. And speaking of that, Kim, and I'm a little off track here, but, you know, you sent out something on heat tapes. Is that something that we can get involved in here in Ridgway? So, you know, I've sent that to the town to see if we're using heat
We're not.
tapes. But I've also sent it to the school because I know they are using heat tapes. Is that something that the Ridgway School could get involved in, you know, to try to decrease their electricity footprint?
Yes, right now we're looking for those key pilot projects. The school might be a very opportune one to do in the town of Ridgway. So far in our region, I think there have been 2 installations, one on Mountain Village Town Hall and one in Lawson Hill on a Telluride business. Those were done last year, kind of as the Mountain Village one was kind of a pilot project. We have data showing energy savings so far for both of those. So yeah, we're reaching out right now to try to get more projects to get installed, you know, to get on the list to get installed this, I guess, December. So before it becomes too much wintry here, and then we can get data for this next winter. And then by next year, by next fall, if not by sooner, we will have more of a full program with educated installers here in our region, a full incentive program having been developed with SMPA and like an outreach community engagement type of thing. So yes, that's a long answer to your question. But yeah, right now we're definitely looking for those key types of projects in each community so that then there's a pilot projects throughout our region.
So we could make that a bullet, right? Is that we want to figure out how to facilitate a pilot project for that program.
Yeah, I mean, I have a month to work on that because, you know, I've talked to Susan. I need to get with, you know, Shane and but yeah, I'll work that, and by next month, I'll let you know if that is something that makes sense to add to, you know, I've talked to our superintendent and we're working it, so.
Great. And I think that any project that for some reason may not make it into this next round of pilot projects for this winter would definitely be top on the list prior to next winter. So, you know, I'm not quite sure how the exact schedule will go, but it's definitely worth looking into sooner than later. And hopefully it can be fit in this winter.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Kim.
Absolutely. Thank you.
yeah.
Hi.
So one quick question, Kim, something I brought up, but didn't specifically address the new director. I can't remember the long title. How would you foresee that person devoting any dedicated time to facilitating the SAB's mission? Have you had a chance to think that through at all?
I've thought about it a little bit and I talked with Emma, Eco Actions Director, a little bit about it too. And I think it's something that we would just need to explore and have further conversations around. What sounds to me, it sounds to me like a bit of what is missing is somebody that is really the facilitator of your meetings, who's taking notes, driving the agenda, and then making sure and helping make sure actions to happen in between meetings. Some of those, one of the challenges that Eco Action has is that our capacity to complete things is limited a bit because we are not a staff person at a jurisdiction. So there are certain things that we can do, and we can bring all the different puzzle pieces together, but then somebody at the jurisdiction frequently needs to be the staff person actually implementing, pulling the trigger on buying an EV vehicle, for example, or adopting the policy at the council level. So we can do a lot to get things to that point, or to help the SAB get things to that point, but then there still has to be that at least some capacity at the staff level to actually make a lot of things happen. If it's an EV ride and drive event or things that are more public engagement oriented, it doesn't necessarily need that staff level. So that's just part of what we face working with the region as a whole anyway. And that would certainly still be present if we were to be a part of the SAB and maybe take a leadership role. But as our staff, our paid staff person might have that capacity and capability to facilitate and lead and help things move forward, that right now as a group of volunteers, you're having challenges doing, from what I'm hearing.
Address that, and it was before you were able to join us, because I failed to send you the invite in time. I just got new devices and it didn't automatically connect to the internet. We just got clarity on what that process looks like, or some clarity. So we, this committee, have a better understanding today than we did yesterday about how to get our ideas that may be facilitated through somebody that's intimate with the climate action plan, your coordinator, all the way through to a recommendation before council that leads to an action item that then might result in town staff taking action. So we have some clarity on how to connect those dots now. And that was one of the things we've struggled with as a committee, is how do we actually manifest our advice. So I think, maybe in a future session, we can have a work session with you guys once your coordinator is on board, and look at how we might, take advantage of some of that time that may be available to work with Ridgway and bring the expertise from Eco Action Partners. Because one thing that we collectively may not know is that we do, in the climate action plan that the town has signed on to, there's an appendix that has a number of very specific items for just the town of Ridgway. So it could be that it's just your coordinator is helping us look at the appendix, the Ridgway appendix of the CAP, to help us, this committee, figure out how we turn that into action.
And Terry, we have had the Eco Action Partners person with Kendra come to us with the CAP, and we've gone over that in this meeting. Yeah.
Right.
So
But I'm talking about, besides the ideas, they're gonna have a new staff person that's dedicated to helping these communities manifest some of this stuff.
Sure. I'm concerned that we do a whole lot of talking and we aren't moving forward with
Yeah,
putting.
we've got about 40 minutes to
Yeah.
try to get some bullet points onto this work plan. So I think we need to focus the rest of the meeting on that. You
Yeah.
guys on board with that? Thank you so much, Kim. Really appreciate you. And Joyce, are you still there? I don't
I'm
think she.
still here. Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but we just could not make out what you were saying.
No worries. I feel like I have a new headset and it sounds like the speaker on it is not great. So I had to default to my laptop speaker.
So we're now trying to get back to the work plan and try to get at least some bullet points, get this kind of started so that we'll have a good base for our next meeting, our December meeting, which will be before the next council meeting.
Yeah, and then I was gonna see when we're putting this together, since we have Kim kind of on the line, do we have so I feel like the CAP I remember is a regional one. Is there one specific just for like Ridgway's usage? For like energy and waste and greenhouse emissions and where those all come from?
We have our section in the cap. Is that what you're asking? We have this.
Well,
Specific.
I don't, yeah, so like, I think that when I remembered looking at it, it was like, you know, energy consumption pie chart, right? And it was percentage from maybe like buildings and residential and blah, 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 but it was for the whole region versus just Ridgway itself and like, or greenhouse gas emissions. There was also a really lovely pie chart, but it was kind of for the region versus Ridgway itself. And so I was just curious if we had one just specific for Ridgway, because I think it would be really great to kind of look at when we come up with a work plan, if we notice like, oh, 20% of our greenhouse gas emissions are from food waste and like all the things going to landfills. Is that, for the region, or is like, could Ridgway be like that in itself could be 30%? And if that's the case, then that's certainly an item we should really focus on.
So Joyce, I can chime in on that. You're talking about the greenhouse gas inventory and its breakdown for Ridgway. So we track individual community electricity use and natural gas use. Those are the two most accurate pieces of data that we get for that entire climate action plan or for the entire greenhouse gas inventory. And so that does get tracked on a per community basis, so that then we can also identify if things go up or down, which community, where that's happening in each community or what might be contributing toward it. So we do track electricity and natural gas on a more detailed basis. The rest of the items are more countywide or region-wide or population-based estimates, things like that. But what we've found, whether we broke things into Samuel County and Uray County, or at one point did just one community, like Town of Telluride, I think paid us to do just Town of Telluride, the percentages break out the same. Buildings are around 50% of the pie, transportation is around 27% or so, and then waste and food consumption and all those items make up the other 25-ish%. So it might be different by a couple percent in one direction or another, but the main bulk of priority is still the same in the order of things. And what we kind of back to that existing building stock is 50% of the pie chart. So that's a mix of residential and commercial. It breaks out almost evenly across most of the communities, maybe a little bit higher on the residential side for most. But that's kind of where our priorities, I think, from the work plan session tomorrow at the Sniffles Energy Board are going to lean on, is a lot of it toward existing buildings.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so Deb, we're gonna now focus on work plan items
Yes.
Yeah.
or vote on some work plan
So,
items.
I think to start with, let's go over what we went over and did at the last meeting, where we went in and we took the items that are existing on here and we changed some wording. We may want to make that a little more aggressive instead of like we did establish a town, or we had established a town goal. Maybe we change that to establish a town ordinance to reach net zero GHG emissions. Or I don't know, I'm just, these are the items that you guys, all you guys look at the minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, I mean, all of those items that are on this look pretty good to me, except for that net zero. And I do think we need to clarify that some, because, it would be, and maybe we can do it between this meeting and next meeting. Maybe we can have a, kind of work offline to define what is this going to look like and what does this mean that we do differently? Because,
So does it, specifically the net zero, will that eventually, or do we want that to take the form of a town ordinance? Or do we want that to be some other,
So we created this board went through the process of doing a draft ordinance that went to Preston.
right, I know we did that.
And, yeah, and then,
I know we did that.
happened with that.
I guess my question was, it's pretty easy to put on here a bullet that says, come up with the town hall, or, come up with a draft net zero ordinance. To your point, we need to discuss what that
What does
looks like,
that mean?
but that's on us
Right.
for the strategic plan. So the town sees it in front of them. Is it an ordinance that we're driving toward, or is it something else?
Let me weigh in, as having been to that Mountain Town 2030 conference, the entire reason for that conference was to get communities to commit to being net zero by 2030. In the conference, they asked the communities, how many of you have committed to 2030? Bunch of hands went up. How many of you actually have plans to get there? No hands went up. So I think, and that's 5-6 years from now. So in my opinion, I think what we need to do is to establish that as a working goal, that this SAB recommends that the town adopt that as a public goal, because we had to publicly state in Mountain 2030 that we were committed to this goal. Doesn't mean we actually have the plan fleshed out, but that's then what we come back with, and the committee begin to then flesh out what timeline and what the steps are, and how do we achieve that goal,
So
and we
we
bring
try-
that back to. the
So is our task, and maybe our task should be, come up with a plan
Yeah,
for the town to achieve net zero by whatever.
That's-
exactly, because,
So
yeah,
we can,
I mean,
But that's,
Yeah.
that's the working part of it, but do we want
goal
the town to
without a
adopt the
plan
goal?
is, yeah,
so and just remember, this is goals for 2025.
right.
What we want to, what you guys want to accomplish.
They can have a town
So-
goal, but let's come up with a plan.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's two parts to my question, and to your point. One of the items could be encourage the town to establish a goal or ordinance or whatever. I'm confused about the goal and ordinance, but come up with a formal commitment to establish a net zero GHG. And then another item is develop a plan
What does it look
that
like?
will help the town achieve that goal.
So I think the two parts, and I don't think it's worth poo-pooing the idea that the town established that commitment as a goal. These other communities have done that, and now they're working to figure out how to make
Right,
it happen.
so our town has not.
No,
Exactly.
not officially. We've put something forward, it's been talked about, but it hasn't been adopted as, just like we have, this month is, Bet Your Dog Month. That, they actually have a little declaration or what's the term I'm looking for?
Resolution,
Mandate.
proclamation?
Proclamation, the town proclaims that their goal is to be net zero by 2030. Great, now we're on record as having that goal established. Then it's up to us in our 2025 bullets to take a bite out of that elephant. What does that look like? What are we gonna commit to do as a committee to achieve that goal? But I think the two parts need to be somewhat separate. Just because other communities have established that goal publicly, we have not. And so once it's established publicly,
And
now
then
the
they-
onus is on us to make it
How would they establish it publicly
a
as a,
proclamation or
Sure.
something,
It would not be a proclamation.
or some.
Yeah, it would be an ordinance or resolution, probably an ordinance.
Maybe it's a resolution then.
okay, so get that on there that says, we're gonna encourage.
Okay, so we're gonna start with-
Establish that.
Not encouraged.
And
Establish a town goal.
A resolution to establish the goal, or what's the?
Resolution / ordinance, whatever the official.
It would be
Thanks.
establish a town ordinance to reach net zero GHG emissions
by 2030.
2030.
by
Or
2030.
whatever, I don't know if you at this point.
We need to put it by 2030.
Well, Terry wants 2030, but I think we need a second one that
Yes,
says
okay.
establish a plan.
Yeah, so that was the next thing I would.
And I don't think you can keep them separate. I don't think you can say, we want you to establish this by 2030 without having some sort of plan for them.
So establish a
So-
plan to achieve by 2030. And then I think we should come up with some recommendations under that, some bullets, so that, You know, for everything you decide, you're thinking about greenhouse gases.
Right.
You know, all vehicles will be EVs
so-
if possible, all.
Which is, what does it mean to be net zero?
Yeah, exactly. So all these things we need to.
So I think for the bullet purpose.
So I'm
we've got the
I want to make sure we're clear on this. Establish a town ordinance to reach net zero GHG emissions. Develop a plan to achieve net zero
Yeah.
GHG emissions by twenty
And
thirty.
a state
Is that,
timeline.
is that what
So
you're
both
wanting?
of those are by 2030. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
You-
So
That's what
voted on,
that's what we picked.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, I don't know if it's doable.
I
but let's
understand.
at least
It may
aim
not
for
be-
it.
It's never gonna do.
So those are two
Yeah,
specific
exactly.
bullet points.
And I assume that this is for just the town buildings, or is this the whole?
That's my other question.
It's not for just the town buildings.
But
You're not.
there's no way you can do
you're not-
this for the town.
Exactly. So you've got to specify what, I mean,
When-
well, we
when-
don't have to
when
say
these other
net zero.
towns say that we're gonna be,
Do we have-
they said that we have this goal, are they applying it to the town operations, or are they applying it to the whole?
To me, it's not clear.
It's,
So-
it's,
so
we can
that's-
say
that's-
typically it's,
Terry, yeah,
Go ahead.
but can I just chime in? My understanding is that goal, when municipalities adopt it, is for municipal operations.
only, okay.
I think that's the
Because
place to start.
pretty-
I think we
because-
can, that's a big, huge bite to get. all
Because-
the town.
Well, and governments can't mandate 100% of everything that everybody does, like flying or driving or those habits. So I think what the government is in control of is your own town buildings, and then you can enact things and put into place programs, policies, et cetera, to try to reach beyond that.
I think it's
Okay.
buildings and operations.
Thank
For
you,
example, the Public Works Department using, going, for example, on a micro level, I can be net zero in my house by putting enough solar on my house to offset all my
Mhm.
electric uses, including my gas use. So we could broaden the scope to the town to say the town's buildings and operations will become net zero by 2030. That, which means that we get out of using diesel for our trucks and we go to something that's more sustainable. And that potentially that gas, like you tried to do at one point, is offset by additional, right now, the town theoretically, our operations are net zero because we purchased totally green. So we've already
Yeah,
found a way to.
I would wonder, can we put a caveat on there that says, and we electrify utilities and vehicles when possible? Because I don't want us to stay gas and just buy a bunch of solar,
There's only so many mechanisms, so.
So can I just chime in on that, Dave, that you can't offset natural gas. The only thing that can be offset, like with REX, is electricity use. So the greenhouse gas emissions pie chart cannot be reduced in size at all by, say, buying carbon credits for your natural gas use or buying carbon credits for your diesel vehicle or whatnot. So
Good.
So from what it's the only way to reduce it to be zero is actually to electrify and then make sure that all of that electricity is renewable energy.
Good.
Good.
Thank you. That's what we want.
So something I've been confused about this whole time is when we say town, I'm confused between town operations, municipality facilities and whatnot versus the community, the town community.
It's
And
not.
it would help me to understand as we come up with these goals, because I think some of our goals should be sort of community driven. Some of our goals should be town driven. So it would help me if we could come up with a little lexicon or whatever, so that when we're discussing this among ourselves, we know if we're talking about the town or the community. And maybe it's
How
just
how about this to satisfy that question? The goal is to go net zero for all town operations and facilities as an example, and then to encourage, this is a third bullet, to encourage the town residents to use the town as an example to do the same.
Exactly.
So that we educate, we use us as an example and we show part of our education, another education.
That's good. I
And how
think
we communicate that to our residents.
that needs to be another bullet in here. Is we need to take that role as the educator to the community. And then, one thing that I've been very interested in myself is cold climate heat pumps and using those to drive hydronic systems. And that's not something that's been done a lot. That's not gonna help the town out at all, because that's not what they have, but there's a lot of residents that have, hydronic systems that are driven by gas, boilers.
Right.
So when we're coming up with these things, that now is a community facing.
Correct. Kim, what were you gonna say on that?
I was just gonna chime in. I think it is really important, and I'm glad the conversation has gone here, to be really specific with the goals and objectives that you're setting up. So being really specific that it's town municipal use that you're targeting with net zero, and then community-wide for different goals. I want to point out that the Regional Climate Action Plan has goals for the region, which are community-wide, region-wide. 50% by 2030, I believe, reduction, and 90% by 2050. They're in the climate action plan. It's something like that. And those are in alignment with the state goals for greenhouse gas emissions reduction. So and those were already adopted by the town when it adopted the regional climate action plan. So you already have community-wide objectives there adopted.
So this goes back to that, the differentiation between a goal and how to achieve it. So the goal is set community-wide, but what actions are being taken regionally to actually manifest that? And I think that then if we narrow that down to this town, I think what we're saying is we can have these narrow definitions that the town wants to go net zero, and that means the facilities and operations. Secondly, the town, as in bullet 2, will use our own example to encourage and educate our residents to achieve the same thing. And then that's how this community will help achieve those regional goals. So it sort of translates upstream. So
Sounds good.
And if I can chime in on the thought process of developing a plan to do so, that plan is the Regional Climate Action Plan. You will need to get more specific than the actions that are in there, but there's got almost 100 actions in that plan, not including Ridgway's specific appendix in that plan. So that's your starting point for both town specific, government specific, as well as community-wide actions. And then from there, narrowing it down as to, okay, if we're going to electrify, one of the items is electrify all government fleets. So fleet vehicles. So then it's, okay, well, what are the steps in order to do that? And you can take every single action that's in there and narrow it down from there. Does this item apply to Ridgway or not? If so, then how are we going to accomplish it?
and that may be a perfect example of how your new director can help us bridge the gap between the cap that the town has signed off on and those specific items to help, otherwise I doubt anybody here has recently read the cap and all of those 100 goals. I haven't, although I've read it many times before.
Well, Kim, my frustration has been that the specific Ridgway goals don't really reflect Ridgway, and we need a way to annually update those and make those our goals. That should be owned by Ridgway, if you will.
So those actions were developed with input from the town of Ridgway. They may be a couple of years out of date, but that is how they were developed. We didn't.
Last year.
Okay.
Well, they don't even include everything on our master plan, and we brought that up and said, we've got things on our master plan that aren't in our goals here. Why not? Why can't we? It should be a living document. We shouldn't just do it every 2 or 3 years. If Ridgway wants to update their individual goals, we ought to be able to do it and send it to you and say, here are our current Ridgway goals.
So the Regional Climate Action Plan, it's a guiding document. It can't be edited on an annual basis, or we would not have one version out there for everybody to follow. That being said, especially the jurisdiction-specific actions can be updated, use those as it is. It was created in PowerPoint, so if somebody wants to take on that page, we can make it into a PowerPoint file and somebody can be in charge of it on this board level. if that's what you would desire. It's certainly not secret. It just can't be updated and published as a whatever 78-page document on an annual basis for all of the regions. We've got 10 different governments.
Yeah,
So
of course, I just want us to see some local control of the appendix. Of what are the goals here in Ridgway so that, you know, then if we're gonna use the cap, that we'll feel like we're engaged in the cap because we have our goals on, you know, in the appendix.
And
And
maybe in the next meeting, we bring that appendix up and we look at each line item and see how that
That's a great idea.
further it informs our action items.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe two
Yeah.
meetings from now, because we really need to get our,
Goals.
these work, plan.
Aren't they potentially one and the same, some of those
They-
goals?
Yeah, but I think that we can reference the cap in these goals. And
So we can
and put them,
It is right now? I mean, can we?
What's that?
Can we see what that appendix is right now?
All right.
We just don't have time. We only have 20 minutes. We can forward it to everybody.
Yeah.
I think
we're
I
gonna-
sent that to you. Did
but
you guys
Town
see that?
council.
I can tell you it's not relevant.
I'm sure it's available. I was thinking if we're trying to develop goals here,
Yeah,
It won't help. I guarantee you.
there's not, there's really no, if you will, meat to it.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
no
know
need.
how else to say that.
Yeah,
It's not specific and, as far as the Ridgway portion of it. I mean, I can bring it up if you would like to take a glance at it. So-
let's just share it with everybody.
I'll take your word that
Let's,
it's more than we need. I think each of us is gonna have to spend some time over the next week coming up with stuff, and we're gonna have to work through some email.
right.
In the interest of time here, we did spend a good portion of the meeting trying to figure out our structure. Should we plan on having a mid-month workshop to further flesh these out? Rather than wait to the next,
That's a great.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm good with it.
So, you're talking about a meeting between now and, the
And the
3rd
next-
of December?
the next.
I know that, I'm not available at all,
Do workshops have
rest
to
of
be publicly notified? I guess they do.
Yeah. but I can check with Preston and see what his schedule looks
Does
like.
he have to be?
Yes, the
Does one
staff
of you
member
have
has to be here, yeah.
Well, couldn't Terry,
Terry,
be staff
and Nicole.
member?
That staff member needs to be in,
Terry's.
he's a council member, he's a
Okay.
council liaison.
Because we're finally getting focused enough to where we have some real, roll up our sleeves work to do with establishing these goals. I mean, this is a good.
So let me just, text him right now because I'll never remember this tomorrow. And just see if he's available to do a.
Can we have the workshop and he's here, but not like actively participating in it? I mean, I don't
I
understand.
think it has to
this
be
concept.
overseen because it's part of the sunshine laws. They have to have a staff member.
We need to have a staff member present for the meeting.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
So, I won't be able to give you an answer on that tonight. If there's a date that we can do in the next 2 weeks, we have Thanksgiving coming up. So basically 2 weeks from now.
Deb, are we establishing another meeting date that's consistent with?
Well, I think
Our
what we're
team
gonna
members as
do,
well.
we've kind of discussed this because it's really, really crucial that everybody be in attendance. So I think we're gonna just start doing a Google poll every month and see what the best date is
So,
that people can attend, because it's not working doing the,
so my question, if we appointed a subcommittee, do we have to have a staff member? Can we have?
your
a-
meeting, if it's more than two,
Can we-
more than two people, yes.
More than 2 people, okay.
So we could do 2 people plus
You
somebody.
need to have somebody there taking minutes. It really, it's,
What if we did this based on that structure? What if we chose a subcommittee of 2 people that gets together and puts this list of projected bullets, these work item lists, and then that committee brings it to our next meeting
Yeah.
sure,
to discuss it.
sure.
It's a great idea.
To do that, but I mean, how is that different than us just all working on our list and then compiling them? One big list.
It
It's
just,
just more focused.
it's just, if 2 of us do it, yeah, we might have some creative energy that way.
We could all email the 2 people as well.
Exactly.
So you can't email, you still have to keep your emails within the correct number. You can't email to everyone. That's why we have it on the bottom. Do not reply all
But you
on
can-
all of the emails, but
But you
you
can
can
send it to
contact
one-
me.
Send it to
Okay.
everybody.
David can contact, yeah,
I
you guys can work
think
on
we've done
something.
fine.
Send it to myself. I'll send it out to the next two people. But you can't all be communicating on the same.
Okay.
But you can send your ideas to David,
Mhm.
you know, and
Can they send it, can the group send it to the two of the subcommittee? Is that, is that?
No,
okay?
you're saying the group?
So if individually, David has ideas he wants the subcommittee to consider prior to
You
presenting.
guys are all having a conversation that so you're still all combining, is what you're
so you
saying.
can only send it to one person.
You can set, yeah, you can't have, it's better if if two people are gonna do something, send it to me. And I'll distribute it out to
the subcommittee.
everyone else. They just can't,
Or,
you guys can't go back and forth.
So again, I'm not sure why don't we all develop our list,
Yeah.
send it to you,
Just,
and you compile it and send it out?
I'm not gonna compile it.
Well, not
I
compile
give
it,
it to
but
somebody to.
I think our subcommittee.
Can the two representatives of the subcommittee compile those?
Yes.
individual
yeah,
inputs?
okay, so we
Send it to,
Send it
send
to
everything
me.
to
you
you.
just forward it blanketly. to the
I'll send it
subcommittee
to
members.
whoever wants to compile it.
Or just send it to one of, let's say David and I are the subcommittee, all right? Send it to one of us. We can send it to the other person. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Right.
So we can, if two people, subcommittee, we can share back and forth.
Okay.
We just can't do it more,
You
right?
can't send more to more, yeah.
Right,
Those two people.
yeah, but you know, if,
Okay,
Can I chime in with just a suggestion for this process? I don't want to be repetitive, but I really strongly suggest using the Regional Climate Action Plan as a guiding point, not just the Ridgway Appendix. The challenge of using just the Ridgway Appendix is it misses out on the other 70 items that do apply to the entire region. So I would use that as a guiding place, so a starting place, so then it's consistent and it hits all of the different things that were already identified through a really extensive effort that we've already gone through at the Sniffles Energy Board level. So that Dave was already part of as well.
sure. And you guys can do that.
we'll send it to everybody and
I'll send it to everybody.
then our subcommittee can look at that and, you know, yeah, use that.
So should we select a subcommittee?
We did,
Yeah.
Dave and Dave.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you agreed
I'll
to.
do it.
I will send you, yeah,
Do we need a motion?
I'm gonna send, no, we don't need a motion.
We don't need a motion?
We don't need a motion.
So we do want a deadline though, so, the subcommittee, I think, would like to have everything so we can kind of compile it and massage it.
So,
We can set it back out.
yeah, so we would ask that by the end of this week, that the other committee members send to either myself or to David, doesn't matter which.
Let's just establish one person, so it's not not confusing. And so I'm willing to do everything. The question is whether or not everybody has my email address.
We should.
Everybody did, it's on the
Invite.
group email.
Okay, all right.
All right.
I will send the cap out to everyone first thing in the morning.
And then you.
Wait. They can't send it to me. They have to send them to you.
No, they can send them to you.
To one person, they can send it just to one
I
person.
can send you just a one-way
Okay.
conversation.
A one way, yeah.
Right, okay.
Right.
Me, it's a different situation because I'm not on the
You can
board,
send
I'm
it
a
out.
staff member, I can send it to everyone.
All right, so
So pick a date you'd like for us to send you information.
So
by
I-
the end of Friday,
And this Friday?
just right. And then Dave, you and I can work over the weekend or early next week.
Right.
To massage it. And then what we'll end up with by the end of, like sometime next week, is something that we'll send to Deb to send out to everybody to review prior to our December 3rd or what the meeting is at.
I feel like we're going.
Yeah, I
through
think it's the
meetings.
third.
Okay, and then you have the ability to email me and say, Tara, where the hell is your suggestions?
Right.
Yeah.
Or-
The next meeting is set for December 4th. I would be happy to send out a Google Meet thing to make sure that's gonna work for everybody, because I know Wednesdays don't work for Joyce. I don't know about everybody else. I don't know what We want to try to get as many people in attendance as possible. If we have to change the date every
November
month.
4th
that's
is,
what we do.
Wednesday, right?
Yeah, Joyce, you can't make Wednesday, correct?
I mean, I could probably make that next one. It's just that Wednesdays in general are harder for me. So like, you know, Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday meetings tend to be a lot
About
more, are a lot easier for me
I-
to attend.
Okay, well, I can't do the Google poll right now because I'm not gonna be here, so Preston's gonna have to send it out based on his schedule. We already have a 4th set up,
the
so.
third.
I'm
third
gone
and fifth.
from the third to the 15th. I may be able to bump back in, but I'll be in Belize from the 3rd to the 15th. I don't, Monday the 2nd, I don't know if that's open.
I'm not here.
Yeah, you're not here. Okay. All right.
The third.
Okay, so we'll have to
This
send
one,
out a
full-time
Google
staff.
poll and see what's gonna be the best day for the next meeting.
Sure.
So, so I will get that to Preston, Google poll.
Can I bring up now that we have that process established, 2 other quick issues? One is if going back to our original charter, one of the line items is make recommendations to provide opportunities for young people to broaden their understanding of sustainability practices and the effects they have. We have a youth advisory committee, and I would like to propose as one of our items that we encourage and or get Preston to establish a youth council liaison to the SAB. So that one of those youth council comes to our meetings and then takes that information back to the youth council so that we have a conduit between what we're trying to do, and maybe even another volunteer to bring this downstream to our youth. So that's a suggestion I have.
Where would it go though?
I think that was actually brought to the Youth Advisory Council, and there was at that time not anybody who really had the time to do that, but it didn't have any volunteers, so doesn't mean they won't.
Right,
Have
and
more.
because it wasn't officially established, so what if Preston, who leads the youth council, says we need one person to step up and to be a liaison to this committee, and then somebody has to volunteer.
Yeah.
What,
So,
or we could just have somebody from our committee attend that youth committee.
But that
and we
doesn't
also
help-
invited any of them to attend any meetings at any point.
Pardon me?
We also invited them to attend any meetings they wanted to attend.
I just think we need to hold their feet to the fire a little more, because otherwise kids don't like to volunteer for stuff, but they volunteer to be on the youth council, which means they gotta do something. So anyway, that's issue 1, figure out how to manage it. Issue 2 is I didn't
Put it
get
on
to,
your list.
yeah, I have it right.
Yeah, put that on your.
It's on my list. The other is, I didn't get a chance to share it, but I nominated the town for an award at that Mountain 2030. And we really thought we were gonna win it. So FYI, John Clark, the mayor, and I traveled to that. We shared a room. We spent 20 hours in the car. Ridgway was extremely well represented, and we were one of 35 nominees for an award called Small Towns Doing Big Things. I'd like to share what was in that nomination letter, because I didn't get a chance to do that. We did not win the award, and we really thought we were going to win it. And the town that won it was Crested Butte. And the reason they won it is they adopted an all-electric code for new construction. And so that was an aggressive move. It got the attention of this collaboration of communities. They won the award of Small Towns Doing Great Things, or Big Things. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that when they asked us to nominate the town, they said, we basically designed this award based on the efforts of Ridgway.
Oh,
And so we were the model for the award, and we didn't win it. And I'll share all of the.
Who did win?
That's what I said, Crested Butte won it. And because,
Right.
and it was described when they got the award, because they decided to go all electric for the
Yeah.
construction,
They're-
So
which
they-
is the
they-
stretch goal of the last bullet.
Right, so they actually put in a town, in the town code that if you build new.
All
Oh, yeah, it's
construction-
completely, they're so bold and brazen, and that's what
Wow,
we should be
that's
doing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Just do wimpy.
And they presented to us at one point.
Yeah, Eric did.
Their lessons learned, the things they had trouble with,
They're
things that were
powerful
successful.
over there.
But they got the recognition of this 550 people and received an award for
Yes,
that,
they
being
should.
that aggressive.
They
Yeah,
should
that's
have.
great.
So and that's-
We only have 5 minutes left, so just before, because I want to make sure we get stuff done. is the plan right now is that Deb is gonna send everyone the CAP plan. We're gonna review it. Everyone's gonna compile their list of maybe 2 or 3 things that we think we should integrate into our work plan. And then one person is going to compile what's gonna end up being quite a lengthy list. And then at the December 4th meeting, we will be voting on those. Is that correct?
That's correct, although the one person compiling it is actually a committee of 2.
Yeah, and at the next meeting, what I would envision is we give everybody, 3 or 4 stickies. And we just put them on some sheets and you go pick out what you see as your top 3 priorities or your top, so that we have some way of prioritizing these and,
I think.
This will be our last opportunity to get this together for council.
right.
It's a little bit hard to know until we receive everybody's list, how much there is in common.
Correct.
So what we'll come up with is in terms of prioritizing it. I don't think we have to have it prioritized by this next meeting, but for our work going forward, we probably should do some prioritization, but for the purposes of the work plan, I don't think there's any priority.
Yeah, and the way it's listed on here is not necessarily the way in which it needs to be done. It's just, those are the goals.
I agree.
That's- Yeah.
Yeah, I would,
If you get 10 of them, we should probably down select to 5.
exactly.
Oh, yeah, if we get 20 things, then we're gonna have to chop some off.
You don't agree with, because we can come up with all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. So
Like no roofs.
if one person comes up with something, that doesn't mean it makes the work plan.
Yeah.
So we
Right.
do prioritize.
Well, that list is going to be something like 20, just based off of if everyone's giving, 3 or 4 and just the number of members, it's unlikely that they're all going to overlap. And then just to, yeah, and just to echo what Kim said, I also really advise to look at the full cap and not just the appendices, because there are, our goal is to reduce net zero GHG emissions. And right now we're really focused on electrification, which is great, but there's all kinds of other sections within the CAP plan that we are not touching at all. It's reducing landfill waste and single-use plastics, or looking at food resources and all kinds of things that are also important. And I just want to point that out because I know that electricity is incredibly important and we need to focus that, but there's also 2 other boards that are focused on net zero and electrification and other things. And I think that the point of the sustainability board is to be more holistic and not just another, electrification committee. So I just want to mention that.
A good point.
Yeah, I agree, although I also feel like we have to be careful not to spread ourselves.
We have to look at what the
Wow.
highest impact initiatives. I mean, if all we did was look at the climate action plan, there's probably 30 suggestions in there by itself. But as you pointed out, or somebody pointed out, they are ranked as to which have the greatest impact in becoming sustainable. And so we can use that as a guide to, whether it's composting makes the list and all the, single-use plastics. These are all great things, but which has the greatest impact in terms of achieving the goal, the greater goal of sustainability? And we'll all
What's the
make that
greater goal?
determination.
Net
I
zero?
don't know. That's just one. That's just electricity. Or
Net
that is
zero.
a big
Isn't
overarching.
that our greatest goal? Net
It's
zero?
probably the biggest overarching goal.
Okay.
But to Joyce's point, there's a lot of
No,
things
you
in
can
there.
do that with
Yeah.
animal products.
If I can just make an offer, if you want, Eco Action Partners, one of our current staff members, can take a look at what you come up with prior to your next meeting and provide input on, whether something that you identify might already be getting covered by one of our current regional grants, or whether it's something that's on the work plan for our next new staff person. or whether it's something that multiple other jurisdictions are doing that you might want to reach out and collaborate and learn from them on, et cetera. So if you'd like that support, please send it my way.
Okay.
Great,
That's great.
Thank you.
yeah.
Welcome.
I would also make one last request as you develop your list of bullets, if you could sort of where it makes sense or where it's important, indicate the difference between town and community or town and,
Municipality.
you know, municipal, but for my purposes, let's call it town and community. And that will help us as we're compiling the list to know whether or not one of these action items is going to be directed toward the community primarily, or for the town, or both. It would help.
Good idea.
2 flavors.
And, you know, there are a lot of goals out in that climate action plan, but there's not a lot of actions to accomplish those goals. And, you know, if you have a goal to do this, that, and the other, you need to have an action plan. You need to have, you know, some way that we're going to do this.
Right.
That's achievable. You know, as Terry said, some things are bigger impact than others. Some things are also a lot more achievable and easy than others. And, you know, looking around the table, what can we really accomplish? And knowing that our town only has a few staff and they can't go and start a new, you know, composting facility for the town necessarily, unless we want to do it ourselves, you know, so yeah, what's achievable?
That's a good filter.
Mhm.
I have 2 quick updates. It'll take less than 1 minute. I promise it's less than 1 minute, so tiny. One is, and because I'm the liaison to the council, we went through our first budget workshop with the council. And we put into the budget to increase the fleet vehicles by 2 vehicles. One will be a hybrid truck. It would be an F-150, and the other is going to be an all-electric truck, an actual Ford Lightning. So
What?
that's 2 steps
That's
towards that, towards one of our goals.
For the-
That's in the budget
For what, where are they going to be used?
for the facility.
Okay.
Facility vehicles. One actually is going to be a sheriff's. Is it both of them or sheriffs or just one of them?
Because I saw something about the sheriff has been tasked to come up with a,
And they did. So they presented a report and they went through their own due diligence process and the town, the
I'm not
council.
sure that
in
the
budget.
Public Works ones went through, did it? I mean,
What
it
was put into the preliminary budget hasn't been passed yet,
Yeah.
is to purchase one F-50, one F-150 hybrid and one F-50 Lightning. So, and which is all electric. Second brief update was on the Green Street Park. I want to commend the SAB for their support in that master plan process. That's now a done deal. And the outcome, if you haven't followed it, was that the master plan was accepted with the idea of there being a 200 kilowatt consolidated array on the south side and then 5 separate solar systems. The 200 kilowatt system on the south side will be a mission of SNPA. We've actually hired, not me, thank God, another grant writer, Susan Holland, who's going to go after a REAP grant to find funding for SNPA to own and operate and build that system. The other 5 would become park amenities and would be funded by the town eventually as amenities to the park. So that's the update on the final roll-up of that master plan, which this committee provided input to the council, and the council heard it. We didn't get exactly what we asked for, but it was a success.
we still got a big chunk that SNPA is going to try to make work.
And what's the EV charger plan for the town?
For those 2 units,
Yeah.
there would be some
the police are putting one over here somewhere on this side.
for the town, for the sheriff's office vehicle.
These are both, one of these for the police and one of these for
Public Works?
public works, or are these both police?
No, they're not both police. One is, I'm only aware of the one for police. I'm not.
I think one's for
aware of the-
public works and one's for the police.
So
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 the
they're
police are going to
private?
have the hybrid or the,
They wouldn't have the truck. would
Are they
have-
private,
they'd have the-
private plugins?
Yeah.
Just for the police and just for the
these will be charging for
Just for them.
the town vehicles.
Sounds like they're both trucks.
I don't
Hey
know.
team, I gotta run, but I will put my list together. Thanks a lot.
Bye,
Thank you, Joyce.
Bye.
The last real quick update is we got $4.7 million in grants to go forward with the microgrid. So the 2.54 million
What?
was granted to put in the battery here in Ridgway.
Oh,
And I'm working on that right now to
Good work,
generate the
Terry.
RFP, another 1.4 million for a 1.2 megawatt hour battery for the town of Rico. Then the microgrid for the Space to Create common room is being installed this week and next week, so that's going forward. And we got another grant to put in a small microgrid for the SMPA offices here at Ridgway, another $118,000 grant to put in microgrid at the Nuclear offices, and then another $118,000 grant to put 120 kilowatt PV system at SMPA's offices, all connected to the microgrid. So in total, I wrote 10 grants that won and a total $4.7 million.
That's amazing, Terry.
yeah, well done.
Do you think those grants are gonna shrivel up now? With the new-
Legally,
with the
they'd have
new
to do, they'd have-
Administration?
yeah, there's.
It's signed,
always a
right?
risk, But
Pardon?
right now,
So if the grant's signed, right, the money's.
No, not your grants,
Oh,
but
okay.
future grants.
Yeah.
No, I don't
Oh,
mean
I
your
see,
grants.
I
They're
see.
done.
well, hopefully, we haven't done the money yet.
Oh.
The money is a portion to us after the construction of the project, and we submit the final invoice, and then they reimburse us the funds.
They're approved, so you should.
Yeah, we've been awarded the grants. It would take-
So I want to just be clear that, that everyone is supposed to be getting their list together for a date by Friday. Today's
It's
Monday.
our homework Friday.
And when do you think you can get the cap out?
I'm sending it out in the morning.
Okay,
I'll send it out in the morning.
Thank
It's also
you.
available on the town.
And I'll also
Yeah.
get Preston I'm
that just
thinking we
the
need
Ridgway
to
cap?
do a Google poll to see who's gonna be, what day's gonna work that first week in December. Because the council meets the following Wednesday.
And that's the meeting I'll need to go to, right, the following for the council.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think so.
cool.
So
Yeah.
that's, which way, what's that?
Wait, really?
Town council.
Town council is, would be,
sorry about the.
11th. I think it's December 11th.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check that. Yes, it would be the 11th.
Okay, great.
So the first week in December, y'all are gonna need to meet. So we need to find a date that's gonna work. So we'll do a Google poll on that as well.
There is a town council meeting.
But
Wednesday,
that's,
everyone will Zoom in.
there no secret.
Crack a lot of the wine.
Whoever has
Yeah.
applied for the position. Yes,
Except for 11.
it'll be December.
Okay,
The applications are due by the end of this month, I think, or
Right.
18th or something.
Right.
For the SAB, yeah.
right, okay. Right.
And I have just one or two small little quick updates. So along with the things that Terry talked about for the budget, council has also, Preston has given me a list of things that he's pretty sure is gonna be, on the budget for 2025. The install of smart controllers for the park irrigation sprinkler systems, so that the sprinklers aren't just running in here. Whatever training. So, and then, it looks like we'll be moving forward with design engineering. Example, construction level documents for the pickleball courts, and the baseball fields at the athletic park. And then the same thing with moving forward with the design engineering, for some of the elements in the Green Street, sustainability park. So that's it.
Well, congrats on your new job.
Yeah.
We're gonna miss you.
Yeah,
I know you're not gonna miss us.
honestly, you guys, no, it's not that. It's, our workloads are just insane. And it's, so, I apologize for not really getting all the things that I probably should have gotten done for you guys.
You've always
But,
done what needs to be done.
it's just been a little bit nuts.
Feel free to attend anytime.
Sure.
Well, that was
What
a
I
good laugh.
do is I'll watch the
Like,
video.
sure.
I won't be here. Thank you, Kim. We're gonna close this meeting out at 7:09. Do you have anything you wanted to add?
I was just gonna say, Emma and I are looking for the actual Word document that is the table that created the appendix for Ridgway, so I'll send that over to you, Deb, if that's.
Sure. I'll distribute that out to everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
And were
Yeah.
you just saying, Deb, that you're leaving Ridgway?
Oh, no, I got it. I'm now going to be not only the deputy treasurer, but I'm gonna be the deputy clerk as well. So I won't have time to do this
So
board.
she's being promoted out of this board.
Yeah.
Yeah, promoted.
My plate is just too full to be able to do.
You're joining the rest of the staff and government staff in the region, you will have 2 titles.
Exactly.
Congratulations.
It's sort of what we all do in these communities, isn't it?
It sure is. Yep, myself included.
So, but I've done both jobs, so it's not a new thing for me, so.
All right,
Thanks.
you. Thanks,
Yeah,
all.
thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
All right, it is 7:10 PM and we'll close this meeting out. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all being
Yeah.
here in
This is
person
one of our
today.
Productive meetings.
Very,
Oh, thank you.
very nice. that you all were able to.
Remember, do we have to vote?
No, she's
Running
already
for town
put in her
council.
application
Oh, to the
and
council.
she'll be presented to council on our
Tomorrow.
December 11th meeting.
For 2 days.
So,
So
Yeah.
we'll go until December.
because it doesn't close, we have to leave open the position for a certain, it has to be advertised for a certain amount of time. So it'll be past next
Is
week.
there just one spot to fill Kenny's spot?
There's one spot.
Yeah.
Are you taking over Pam's?
No.
Isn't she? the
Karen
clerk?
is retiring.
Oh, Karen.
And so Karen's the deputy.
Oh,
And so I'm taking over her job,
oh, okay.
except for the building stuff.
Oh,
So I'm pulling in,
Full-time, are you split between something else too, or?
I have, I'm the finance person here. I do all the billing and all the receivables, all the payroll, all the, everything.
I thought that was under Pam's, is that under?
I'm the deputy treasurer.
So you're gonna be a deputy treasurer and?
I am the deputy treasurer. I have been the deputy
Oh,
treasurer, yeah.
I can't keep up with all your positions.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
I got
Get stuck
those.
with us.
That's accurate.
Congratulations on getting unstuck.
hey, did you happen to hear, did you
Yeah,
know
right.
Lori got,
I haven't heard.
affordable housing?
I don't have any idea.
Okay,
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
I think that she should have heard by now. I've been out of